Hey guys, today I want to go over my Rage Vortex of Berserking Slayer that I've been playing pretty much since the start of Affliction League. I started out as Bladestorm through the acts and early maps and then switched over to this once I had my first 2 Void Stones and a little bit of currency. So it's a really nice mapping focused character, but it's pretty well rounded as well. If you want to do invitations or regular boss farming, it works pretty well too. I just wouldn't recommend this for Ubers, because the single target is not that high and it's a very melee playstyle. But it is very defensively sound, it has good clear with explosions and big AoE, it's pretty fast and the damage is decent. It works well for me doing Expedition, Guardian maps, Invitations and the Affliction League mechanic. It also has some interesting unique interactions to sustain rage with Chains of Emancipation and Shackles of the Wretched. Which I'll explain later, but that's how I'm sustaining the Rage Vortex of Berserking and Berserk. I'm also using Starforge, which is just a really cool weapon that really fits the AoE theme of the build that I've been wanting to play since they buffed it. And yeah, it's just a very fun build to play in my opinion. It's not crazy expensive, I think. It cost me around 15 divines or so for my current setup. Most expensive item probably being Inspired Learning, or the Starforge, or maybe the Forbidden Jewels, but those are kind of optional. But yeah, there's a POB in the description if you just want to check that out, and it will include some leveling and progression trees as well. But there are some unintuitive mechanics going on, so if you're wanting to play this, I'd recommend listening to the video. Also, by the way guys, I'm getting pretty close to 1000 subs, so if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more, feel free to sub. But yeah, I'll pretty much just let some gameplay roll here, and then I'll get into explaining the build. Okay, so first up I want to talk about a unique interaction that allows me to sustain Rage Vortex of Berserking and Berserk pretty much for a very long time, or almost infinitely. So you have Chains of Emancipation, which says, well, the most important part is when you lose temporal chains, you gain maximum rage and immune to curses while at least 25 rage. Okay, so that means if we can inflict temp chains on ourselves and then lose it, we will gain maximum rage, and then we will be immune to the curse. So the way we're gonna apply the curse to ourselves is through Shackles of the Wretched, which says hexes applied by socketed curse skills are reflected back to you. So we have temp chains and vulnerability in here with hex touch on Cyclone. So anything I hit with Cyclone will first apply temp chains, and then it will apply vulnerability. And since my curse limit is 1, the temp chains will be instantly removed, which will put me at max rage, and then it will actually keep the vulnerability curse on the mob, so you can actually keep that as your main curse for damage. So boom, you can see my rage instantly went to max. Then I can activate my stuff, and once my rage goes to 25 again, if I hit something with my Cyclone, I'm gonna go back to max rage. Now, of course, these monsters are gonna die before I have the chance to hit him, usually with especially if I have Berserk. But sometimes the monsters will die before you have a chance to hit him with your Cyclone, and that means you will have to reactivate your stuff, because another important part about Rage Vortex of Berserking, or any Rage Vortex really, is that it's snapshots. So any effect that you have on you, like Ancestral Protector, or Blood Rage, or Berserk, or War Banner, or like which stance you're in, that's all gonna snapshot at when you start the actual Rage Vortex. Now, there's no cost to reapplying your Rage Vortex like intimidating cry is also very important to have when you press your Rage Vortex, because it literally gives double damage. So, but if you miss, let's say you accidentally start your Rage Vortex and you didn't click your intimidating cry, there's no cost to reapplying it. You can reapply it as much as you want. Just make sure you have all the important damage effects up when you start your Rage Vortex. Okay, so that's the most important mechanic of how we're sustaining our rage. I'm now gonna go over the rest of the gear, and then the gems, and then the passive skill tree. So for the rest of the gear, I'm using Starforge, which is just a really good physical sword, and it has increased area of effect for attacks, which is really nice. Obviously, this is a mapping focused character. We really want a big AoE, and it also makes it so your physical damage can shock. Now keep in mind, you need actually a chance to shock, so you can get it on a flask like this. For single target, I would recommend getting it on a jewel, like if you're doing bosses, I mean, where you don't have perma flask sustain. If you wanted to try bossing, you should get a jewel with percent chance to shock instead of inspired learning, which this build also has. So yeah, Starforge is just a really good sword for non-crit, and the AoE and the shock makes it pretty hard to beat. It also has, of course, a little bit of life, which is good. And then we have Dawnstrider, which doubles the effect of our Ancestral Protector. And it also just makes the effect linger, so it's easier. I talked about earlier with snapshotting. So if your totem accidentally dies before you get your Rage Vortex off, you don't have to resummon it and stuff like that. It's just a nice quality of life feature, and it gives a lot of damage because it doubles the effect of the Protector. And getting implicit with suppress is really good here, because of course we want to have 100% chance to suppress spell damage. That's a very important defensive layer. And then another important defensive layer is this amulet right here, Defiance of Destiny, which I have anointed with Berserking to get maximum rage. But yeah, this one is really important because we don't have any evasion on this character. I actually picked Iron Reflexes and decided to get this instead. This is a really good mitigation for smaller hits against you. So I can pretty much almost AFK in like an expedition or something with tons of monsters hitting me because of this. Because it will fill up your missing unreserved life before being hit by an enemy. And this combined with Slayer Overleech, which I also have, just gives really good regeneration or recovery. It also just has really solid stats. But yeah, this is a very important part when you don't have any evasion because of Iron Reflexes. So yeah, Defiance of Destiny, very underrated amulet, pretty cheap as well. I think Starforge is by far the most expensive item on this build, other than Inspired Learning and maybe the Forbidden Jewels as well. But those are kind of optional. And Starforge is as well to an extent, but it's very good. It's something like 3 or 4 divines. But yeah, for the rest of the gear, for rings, you just want mainly life, resist, and attributes, intelligence, and I actually needed a little bit of strength. I also got some on a charm, but yeah, you might need a little bit of strength to get to 155. But other than life, resist, and attributes, you also really want this channeling skills have minus the total mana cost for your Cyclone to be free, because you're cycloning a lot of the time. And also gaining endurance charges from this syndicate mod right here is pretty important as well. You only have it during mapping, but again, this is a mapping focused character. I don't have a way right now to have endurance charges other than this one minimum endurance charge on bossing, but I don't really do a lot of bossing anyway. And then for the helm, you just want life, suppress, resist, and a Gravicious mod, crafted mod right here, which is fist damage from hits taken as fire damage. This just helps with fist mitigation a lot. And then for the implicits here, you can get that same mod. I have it here with only when unique enemies are present. And then I have vulnerability curse effect. And then for the chest, it's kind of the same thing. You want your life, resist, of course chaos rest, also good, some suppression, however much you need to cap. You can get it from like charms and on the tree as well, of course. And then, here's the Gravicious mod. I think this is I forget which syndicate member actually gives this mod. Its name escapes me right now, but yeah, the Gravicious mod is on here. If you just do Immortal Syndicate, you will unlock both these crafts pretty quickly. And then on the implicit here, I have melee hits has a chance to fortify, which getting a fortification is of course very important. You could also use it on a gem, because I'm not entirely solid on which support gems I really like. But the melee hits have a chance to fortify is pretty good here. You could get determination effect as well if you got fortify from another source. Like you could get fortitude on inspired jewels. You could get this mod on charms, or yeah, you could maybe use the gem as well. And then I have increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills. Just a good mod, but not required. There's other good mods for example, here is a place you could get endurance charges if you wanted it on bossing. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the gear, I think. I'll go over the jewels when I go over the tree. Okay, so for the gems, I already mentioned this Hex Touch setup. It's a little bit important here with the order, because if you have Temp Chains, whichever curse you have furthest away from the Hex Touch is the one that will ultimately be applied to the monster. So make sure you have Hex Touch, and then Temp Chains, and then Vulnerability in this order. If, for example, like if I did this, so Temp Chains is at the end of the chain, I would the monster would get Temp Chains on it. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that's the curse setup. And then here we have the first aura setup. We have Pride, Determination, Blood and Sand, and Enlighten support. If you don't have Enlighten, if you can't afford it, you could get Arrogance and put it with your Precision and reserve that on your life instead. We also have War Banner. I do have Inspirational Forbidden Jewels, which makes it so War Banner is free. All banner skills are free from reservation, but you can also get that on a charm like this if you're a primalist. And this build definitely wants to be a primalist, because yeah, the charms are really good. And it just fixes a lot of things on your build, similar to Tattoos was last league. It's just really nice to have. So yeah, this is the second aura setup, is War Banner and Precision. Then we have Intimidating Cry. I mentioned this is also very important for snapshotting your Rage Vortex. It doubles your damage, so make sure you have that. I have it on left click. I also have Explosions when I press Intimidating Cry from a jewel, from that which was taken. It's a mod that explodes nearby corpses when you War Cry, or sorry, when you use a War Cry. You can also get that on charms, but I got it on that which was taken jewel. It's just a little nice bonus. It's pretty good, for example, in expeditions, or where there's a lot of tightly packed mobs. So you have a War Cry in Intimidating Cry. You have Berserk, of course, this really nice movement speed and damage bonus, and even makes you tankier. It's just a core part of the build, of course. Getting quality on this is pretty nice, because it does drop sometimes in mapping. You don't always have something to hit, so then your Berserk and your Rage Vortex will drop and you will need to reapply them. So having quality here, so you have a shorter cooldown, is really good. And then I have a setup here with my custom damage taken, as well as my Ancestral Protector. So with Ancestral Protector, I have Maim support, and Life Tap does give it a little bit of damage as well, but yeah, Ancestral Protector is mainly just to give you attack speed and to maim the target, which gives increased fist damage taken. And then I have Molten Shell with custom damage taken in this same setup. Just works pretty well with those links. So yeah, custom damage taken with Molten Shell, and Life Tap to make sure it goes off, because our mana is pretty low. I think you need Life Tap, otherwise you wouldn't be able to cast the Molten Shell. I also have Vol Molten Shell, which I use here. The action bar is kind of full, but as long as you use your secondary action bar, you can fit your Vol Molten Shell as well. And then I have Blood Rage, which gives you attack speed. It's a nice attack speed bonus to use for your Rage Vortex, but also, of course, it gives you frenzy charges. So one thing to keep in mind as well in the playstyle is, since Rage Vortex does snapshot, after killing a couple of mobs, you gain your frenzy charges. You also gain your AoE from impact. So you kill a couple monsters and then maybe you cast your Rage Vortex with all the effects you need up. So that's something to keep in mind. You can see in my in the gameplay I am reapplying my Rage Vortex quite often. But yeah, lastly, of course, is the main links for the Rage Vortex. So I have Rage Vortex of Berserking. This is a transfigured gem, of course, so you can either get it yourself from the lab or just buy it for like 5C. Again, quality here is very important because it increases the AoE. But yeah, I'm using Brutality, which you can get Awakened Brutality here if you're fine with spending some more cash. And then you can get... okay, so I'm using Close Combat because I want to focus... I feel like the main problem here is single target. So, of course, when you have this big area, Close Combat doesn't do much to the monsters at the edge. But those are usually like white monsters anyway, and they tend to die anyway. So I wanted to get Close Combat, so if I want to DPS, focus my damage on like a rare or on a boss, I can just get really close and spin around them. And so yeah, Close Combat is a very high damage multiplier. And then we have Awakened Melee Fist here. This one gives Intimidate if you can't afford the Awakened version. Or maybe you're playing SSF or something, I don't know. You can get Intimidate from the tree instead, but if you have a level 5 Awakened Melee Fist, you get Intimidate here. But yeah, it's a big damage support. And then we have Pulverize. It gives big damage and more AoE. This is very important. And then lastly, I have Rage Support. Now, Rage Support does not give a lot of damage. It's like 10% maybe or something. But it does help sustain. It's mostly just quality of life, because it's really hard to... It doesn't do much when you have both activated, but sometimes when you're just running around, you only have the Rage Vortex running, and that's gonna clear on its own, even without the damage from Berserk a lot of the time, like when you're running around in the Wildwood, for example, or whatever it may be. It's just nice to have some rage generation on your Rage Vortex, I feel. But you could use something like damage on full life, or maybe even Impale, and use Master of Metal, Forbidden Jewels or something. I'm not sure. I feel like you can play around with this with really close combat and rage support, depending on your playstyle and whatever you want to do. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the gems. I'll go over the flasks a little bit too. I have a life flask with bleed removal. You can also use the writhing jar if you're bossing to keep up your leech during transition phases and stuff like that. And then I have a jade flask. Of course, I am running iron reflexes, so evasion gives us armor. Then I have a granite flask. Of course, that's just more armor. And you can see on the mods here I have armor and evasion increase, which helps out for even more armor. And then I have a quicksilver, just to move faster. And lastly, a quartz flask. I'm already spell suppression capped without it, and I recommend that you get that as well. It's okay to be capped with only the flask, but I'm mostly just using it for the phasing, to run around mobs. It just makes life a little bit easier. You could use... This flask is a little bit optional. You could use like a sulfur flask maybe or something like that. You could use maybe a Taste of Hate if you wanted to. But I do recommend you get this mod, Chance to Freeze, Shock, and Ignite during flask effect on one of your flasks, because that is what allows you to shock with the Starforge. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the gems and the flasks. I'll go over the passive tree now. Okay, so this is the passive tree. First, I'll talk about the Ascendancy choices. And I'll talk a little bit about leveling here probably as well. But first of all, I picked Impact because it gives you a bunch of accuracy and AoE. Now the AoE is only after you've killed some mobs, so this is something you don't have at the start of the map, but pretty much throughout the entirety of the map. As long as you're refreshing your Rage Vortex, you're gonna have this effect. It also has more damage, more melee damage to enemies based on proximity. So this works very well with the close combat gem. So yeah, you get real close to something, you're gonna deal more damage. And the accuracy is nice because we are using precise techniques, so we need to have our accuracy higher than our life. But yeah, we have Brutal Fervor, which is reduced damage taken while leeching, and also just doubles your leech, and most importantly gives you overleech. So life leech effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. Yeah, overleech is it's just really nice for it's really nice for bossing, but it's also nice when you're like looting stuff in maps. It can just be really helpful, but it also just doubles your life leech, so, and makes you tankier. So this is a really good node. Then we have Bane of Legends, 10% more damage if you killed recently. So for mapping, you basically have 10% more damage, and for single target on unique enemies, you have 20% more damage with this node. It also makes you just Fizz Reflect immune. So that's pretty nice. You can just pretty much run any map. The only maps you can't run with this build is temp chains, like you are cursed with temp chains. You can run hexproof maps and stuff like that, but if you're cursed with temp chains, that will mess up your build. I think no regen is kind of annoying as well because I don't have any mana leech right now. So that you will lose your mana on Intimidating Cry, so no regen. If you just spec this node, you could do no regen as well, though. But other than that, it's just temp chains I would avoid. And then we have Headsman, which is just 20% cull, and then some movement speed and attack speed during mapping. And then for the Wildwood Tree, I'm using Primalist, which, yeah, of course, you're just taking Might of the Bear, and then 3 charms. Now for the charms, getting max rage is really good as a suffix. And then here I have stun immunity, because we have overleech, we're almost always leeching, so we're basically stun immune with a charm like this. And then here I only need the intelligence, but strength can also be a little bit useful. Also just max rage. And then some suppress to max out your suppress, and then you can get onslaught on kill here as well. Also this just gives you a nice little extra inventory space and a character size. But you can definitely play around with depending on what you have on your gear, you can switch your charms around a little bit. But this is, I would say, get the cannot be stunned while leeching at least. And then wherever else you get onslaught and kill and attributes and suppress, it's not as important. But yeah, so for the actual passives, you start here at Duelist, of course. We go down to Precise Technique. Make sure your accuracy is higher than your maximum life. Then we go over up to Ranger, and we're taking some Avoid Ailment stuff. This is really nice with Ancestral Vision. If you have 100% Spell Suppress, that gives you 50% Ailment Avoidance. Then you can get these 3 nodes. That's going to give you another 30 with just these 2. This one is just basically a travel node. And then you get 20 here. So that's 50, 50. And you're ailment immune. And then you just, you don't necessarily have to go up here. But yeah, I chose to go here. There's some good life nodes, suppress nodes. I'm level 97. If I was level 100, I would probably just take these 3 life nodes as well. Here you're getting some suppression nodes. We're taking Vol Pact, which removes your life regeneration, but doubles your life leech. So, of course, this is a Slayer. We're very dependent on leech. And then here I have an Inspired Learning, which gives you a Headhunter-like effect. It's a pretty expensive jewel. It's about 3 or 4 divines, I believe. This is something you don't really need early on, but it's really good for mapping in the late game. Here you're getting some mana reservation. This is basically, you need to have 4 notables in range, so you need all these 4. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't take the extra frenzy charge and endurance charge. But we are getting those anyways, so no points here are wasted. It's all good stuff. Here we get the Life Mastery, of course. 50 to maximum life is very good. Here we get Iron Reflexes. Of course, I'm using Defiance of Destiny to mitigate small hits, so I feel like I don't need evasion, and it's better to convert it all to armor, because in order to get suppression you need to have evasion gear, so you're gonna have some evasion anyway. And then here we have some leech nodes, just damage while leeching, increased leech. Pathing here is also pretty good, I think. But yeah, this mastery is pretty good as well, just more armor basically. And then here we have a reservation mastery. This Bannerman and Revelry, these work very well with Pride, because it's non-curse auras that affect enemies, so it works very well with Pride. And then yeah, going up here, taking this armor mastery, Soul of Steel. I guess that's pretty much it. Using call to arms, so I can put my intimidating cry on left click. You are using this war cry quite a lot, so having that is very nice. A two-handed mastery here. And then a sword mastery. This is where we get frenzy charges on single target, is here. So now we only have, I believe, the cluster jewels left. So the important part on the cluster jewels is, so it's nice because you get an extra jewel slot, basically. You get 2 jewel slots from each. And then you have access to this node right here, Devastator, which gives a little bit of damage, but it gives enemies skilled with attacks have a chance to explode, dealing 1/10 of their life as fist damage. So it's fist damage, so we scale it with everything that gives fist damage. It works, I believe it works with the AoE scaling from stuff like Impact. Actually, wait. Yeah, just area of effect, yeah. It does work, I believe. Yeah, it's just explosions, and 10% is a pretty big explosion as well. And we have 2 of them, so that's 30% to explode. And corpses that don't get exploded, we can explode with Intimidating Cry, thanks to, let's see where I have that jewel. That which was taken, right here. Nearby corpses explode when you war cry, dealing 6% of their life as fist damage. Then you just want some other good stats as well. Like, I think this suppress right here helps me cap out. But the explosion is a nice bonus. I wouldn't say you have to have it, but it's pretty good. But yeah, back to the cluster jewels. This is what mine looks like. It's just Devastator, that's the important part. And then you want at least one other good notable. You can get 3 notables. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but still not crazy expensive. And then if you don't have that, at least you want to get some good stats on the small nodes, like All Resist. It's pretty good. So yeah, that's a pretty simple, very easy to craft cluster jewel, or just buy it for, I think I bought it for like 60C or something like that. And then in here I actually have the forbidden jewels, which I am using Inspirational, which gives non-curse aura effect. So aura effect, and then makes your banner skills cost or have no reservation. But again, if you don't have these forbidden jewels, you can get the same effect on a charm like this. Yeah, my other jewel looks like this. It just has. So here I have Martial Prowess, which gives accuracy. It's nice if you need more accuracy. It also just gives a little bit of damage. And then here I have Feed of Fury. We're always leeching, so this is always active, pretty much. And then I have a Watcher's Eye here. The only mod that's relevant here is the Determination, fist damage taken. And this is a very bad one, very poorly rolled, but it was just like 100C or something like that. So yeah, there's plenty of options on Watcher's Eyes. You can get a much better one than this. With you're running Pride and Precision, so you can get many different mods. And then yeah, that was taken. I get some Chaos Resist here from the small nodes. Ancestral Vision for the Elemental Ailment Immunity. Inspired Learning here for the Headhunter mods. If you wanted to boss, you could use something like this. Just has a chance to shock. Again, you're not going to have perma Flasks on bossing, so you need chance to shock somewhere else. You can just get some other good stats. So I would just put that in there if I'm doing bossing. And then if you really wanted to try like Uber bossing, I don't recommend it with this build, but maybe you would switch some points around to here or something. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the tree. I'll talk a little bit about the leveling as well. So I actually league started this and it's kind of a hard league starter, so I just chose to use Bladestorm basically up until probably level 85 or something like that. I got my first 2 Void Stones just using Bladestorm. I'll put some leveling trees in the POB and some leveling gem setups, but ultimately it's a attack-based character. You can level it pretty easily any way you want. So yeah, I'll put some leveling trees and some progression trees for like once you've transitioned into Rage Vortex for different stages of the game. I'll include that in the POB. But I think that's pretty much it. If you have questions, feel free to post them in the comments. Maybe I'll put some boss fight at the end here as well. And thank you for watching. I'm getting pretty close to 1,000 subscribers, so if you guys want to subscribe, that would help out a lot. Thanks, guys.